Grace and peace. It's Apostle Cheryl here. I'm trying to get set up so that we can get our tag some of you guys. We are continuing. We're continuing our series regarding viewing domestic violence, discussing domestic violence from the perspective of the victim. And our original plan was to do it for the previous month, but we've gotten a real positive response from it, and there are many people out there who feel that they are in a place, that they've reached a place in their journey in terms of recovering from domestic violence, that they're ready to share their story and their journey. And we think it's important that we be able to hear about it from the perspective of the survivor so that we can be more sensitive to those that are around us. So I'm going to try to get a bunch of you all tagged. I want you to tag folks, and let's see. Let me see here. We're going to keep tagging. Want you to tag. Think about 10, 12, 13, 14 people. You can just run down your friends list, because there isn't anyone in the world that this does not apply to. If they're not a survivor or a current victim, then there are people connected to them who are, or they have experienced it in the past. So we're going to try to get as many of you tagged as possible. And we are really looking forward to this discussion on today, because we actually have a male survivor who is willing, and feels ready to come on and share his experience in terms of being a domestic violence survivor. Now, oftentimes, you hear about women being victims, and the majority of the time of the reported cases, because we can only talk about the cases that are reported. One of the dynamics regarding men and abuse in terms of them being victims is they are so much less likely to report any form of abuse to the authorities, to family members, to friends, or whatever. So I want to say hello to everyone's coming on. We're going to see, you know how Facebook has been, right? So we're going to see if we can invite him on. And if not, then we'll do it the old-fashioned way, like we've done the past couple of weeks. And we will just have him on the phone. So we've spoken to him. We know he's ready. He's waiting on us to invite him. I'm going to see if when he comes on. Okay, so I've just invited you, Felix, if you're watching. And it's supposed to be that after you come on, I can invite you directly onto the thing. So I want you all to share. Right now I got 4 of you watching, and there should be more of you than that. Let people know that we are live. We're going to have this discussion, a candid discussion about domestic violence and its impact from a male's perspective. And again, he's speaking only for himself, but I think it's important that we as humans, we have this ability when we are mistreated by a specific demographic, whether it be an African American person, a white person, a Catholic person, a man, that we hold grudges against everyone else in that demographic. Hey Felix, I'm going to see if it'll act right. It's acting crazy because it's saying that we don't have any viewers, and I'm looking at you all, so I know you're here. Let me see. I'm trying to see if I can get you on here. I'm trying. I'm going to like your thing. See if I can't get you actually on here. It's not letting me. Let's see. Nope. All right. So what we're going to do then is that, Felix, do you see a way to ask to come on? Because it's not letting me invite you. Let me see. I'm going to try this one more second. And then, if not, we will go with what we got. Okay, so I'm going to call you. Because before Felix and I began to talk, what I really want to do is share some information with you so that you have this in proper context in terms of the statistics regarding men and abuse. So he's not seeing a way to ask to come on, and I'm just seeing a way to ask him.
Hello?
Hey, how are you?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Is there a delay on the video and the conversation?
I don't know. Don't get confused by that. Can you hear me on the phone?
Yeah, hold on. What I'm doing, I want to turn the Bluetooth off, and I'll transfer it to my cell phone so I can walk around, okay? Give me 1 moment.
Okay, if you need to walk around, that's cool. No problem. No problem. Hey, Jack.
I'm listening, but I want to try and actually put in the Bluetooth so that I can be able to participate in the call better.
Okay, that's fine. So for those of you who are on, hey, I see some of my new friends on here. I'm so glad to see them. Please share. What I want you all to do is let me know.
I'm here now.
Are you there?
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything you just said for like the last 15 seconds.
I didn't say anything important. It was okay. So,
Okay, cool.
so I need for you to talk, and this is what I need for you all to do in the audience. I need for you to give me a thumbs up or hearts if you can hear Felix. Okay, if you can hear him, hit the like button. Hit the thumbs up. Okay, so Felix, say something really profound. I don't know.
Life is interesting. Life is pain is character building. Emotional pain is the worst kind of pain possible, so there's no reason to allow it to happen to others.
Okay, so Jakayla says that they can hear. Can anybody else hear besides Jakayla? Thank you. So you can hear me, and you can hear Felix. If you can hear Felix, also thumbs up, because I don't know who you heard. Felix, say something else. Okay. All right. Well, I got 2 of y'all with y'all thumbs working out there. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm Apostle Cheryl Richardson, and we are doing our weekly broadcast. What we've been talking about over the past month is we have focused on domestic violence from the perspective of the victim. This is something that the Lord had impressed upon my heart, that we were ready to move into that area. And so just so you all know, we've extended it for this Sunday and for the next coming Sunday. Well, I've got slots open, but I need for you to reach out to me on social media or email or something. Find me, okay? I'm easy to find. And let me know that you feel ready to share your story. And it's not a guarantee you're going to share your story, because then you and I need to talk. And I need to be able to discern and hear what the Lord is saying concerning what it is you have to say. But I think it's important. It's an important step in the recovery journey. Anytime you experience a trauma, to be able to revisit it without it sucking you back down into this rabbit hole, okay? And so we don't pressure anybody to do it. We let people know that when they are ready, hey, Elizabeth, when they are ready, then we're willing to hear their story. And I have a twofold reason for that. Number one, it's beneficial to the survivor as long as it's not too early. Okay, as long as they're not stuck there. Number two, it's beneficial to those who hear about their story, because it can help us to be more sensitive, to be more aware of what to look for, to be able to be better friends, better parents, better mothers, better fathers, sisters, aunts, cousins, whoever it is that we're connected to that is experiencing this. Because you will be blown away by how many people are experiencing this. They are trapped in the belly of hell, and they are around you all the time, and you have absolutely no idea. You have no idea. You have no idea, because you're fooled by the mask, and you're fooled by the fact that they do all things well, and you're fooled by the fact that they preach a fiery sermon, or they teach extremely well, or they're a fantastic attorney, right? Or they're a fantastic street sweeper. They're a great waitress. They're a great waiter, and you have no idea what they're dealing with when they go home. Okay, so in order to get ahead of this, and we're passionate about this, in order to get ahead of this, people have to understand what to look for, and they have to understand what not to fall for, okay? I'm going to try to wave to you all. If I don't catch you, just understand I don't want to distract from what we're going to be talking about on today. So I want to give you some statistics to kind of put this in perspective for you, so that when Felix begins to share his story, you have an appropriate backdrop. Okay, so now, a staggering number of men endure physical, mental, and sexual abuse in both heterosexual and same-sex relationships. Now, for those of you who are religious or spiritual or whatever and have a thing or a thought or whatever about, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about humans are humans, and humans should not be mistreated. Any human. Okay? That's our stance. That's our position. And I am an apostle in the Lord's church, and I'm not condoning waving a flag for anything in particular. I'm just saying that humans are humans, and we've got to stop falling victim to these barricades that we put up that separate us from one another, because separation is what? It's isolation. It's isolation. And so now we become complicit in someone being mistreated because we have a bias or whatever. Okay? So that's just, now we've talked about men being victims too back in, I want to say October of last year, and we talked about it back in June or July of last year as well. And so we don't want this to be a topic in terms of men that we do not address, okay? Because it's important to understand that not all of them are abusers, that many of them are victims, okay? And we've even talked in the past about the fact that you can have a situation where both parties are mutually combatant, okay? And then you have to try to determine who the core aggressor is. And there's a whole series of things that you have to view in order to determine that, from a legal standpoint and from a mental health standpoint. Oftentimes you will have partner number two become aggressive, become abusive in a reactive or resistant manner to prevent, to bring to a stop the abuse that they are being subjected to. Okay, so their motivation is to stop the abuse that they are experiencing. The motivation of the core aggressor, whether it is male or female, is to have power and control over the victim. One of the ways that you can tell is who's able to stop it. Okay, the person who's being reactive or resisted will stop when the abuse stops. When the abuse stops, they'll stop. The other party is going to keep going because they're locked in this cycle. Okay, so everybody understand that? If you understand that, give me some indication. Likes, hearts, something. Are y'all thumbs working today? Hearts, likes, if you understand what I am saying. Okay, men are victims as well. Okay, and so there is a staggering number of them. They don't report it, and fewer of them report it than women, who often, most times, don't report it. Okay, and so it's important for us to know that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so according to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 4 men, if somebody wants to be my scribe today and type this in, I love you forever, okay? I'm going to love you forever regardless, but you know. Okay, so according to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 4 men will become a victim in his lifetime. That's approximately 3 million male domestic violence victims each year. 3 million per year, okay? Or 1 man abused by an intimate partner or domestic partner every 37.8 seconds. So every 37.8 seconds, there is a man being abused. Okay? Now, we're talking about men. For the women who are on here, the purpose of this is not to minimize or diminish what women experience. I'm a survivor, so I'm certainly not going to diminish it. I know what I went through. Okay? I know what the Lord kept me through. All right? I wouldn't be here today if he hadn't kept me, for real. All right? So certainly I'm not going to diminish that. But at the same time, it's important that we don't just demonize all men in general and not understand that many of them were victims. What does that mean? That means that many women are abusers. That's what it means. Okay, so we're going to address it. We have to address the whole thing and not just the part that we can personally identify with, okay? So these two things are not mutually exclusive. You don't have men being abused or women being abused. You have men and women being abused. Okay? All right? If that's clear, hit the thumbs, hit the hearts, so that I know you understand. And so throughout this, if you can understand or if you can identify with what we are saying, then do that. Give us some indication, okay? And you can share. Feel free to do a watch party after this. I am blown away by the fact that I'm about to share with you now, because I almost fell out my chair in my research. Now check this out. Author Philip W. Cooks wrote a book called Abused Men, The Hidden Side of Domestic Violence. He originally wrote it in 1997. He updated it 10 years later. And he says, he's saying this, I didn't say this, okay? He says, women strike the first blow in about half of the domestic disputes nationwide. And he says that women are significantly more likely to throw an object, slap, kick, bite, or hit with a fist, and hit with an object. Now, I had to really think about that. He says that women half the time will initiate the first blow, and that we are more likely to hit, bite, throw an object, or whatever. Here are my thoughts concerning that. I'm not saying that this is the case every single time, but I'm thinking many times it's a response to maybe verbal maltreatment or emotional maltreatment. And when you're talking about abuse, you're not just talking about what is done to a person that is abusive. Something like withholding. I can see a woman responding inappropriately because of affection being withheld, finances being withheld. So that doesn't involve anything being done directly to them in an assertive, aggressive manner, but something is still being done, okay? And so I think most times when people behave this way, it's because they feel like they're losing power, they're losing control, or they're being disrespected, okay? And for men, a lot of times it comes down to disrespect. They feel disrespected and they go into this tailspin, okay? So I just wanted to share that with you. So while both men and women are hesitant to seek help, men have an additional barrier to deal with, okay? And again, if somebody wants to type this, thank you. Okay. They are concerned that they may be falsely accused of being the aggressor. They are afraid of not being believed, okay, which is something that women share. Embarrassment and feeling less of a man. Concern about their partner and damaging their reputation or damaging the relationship. So oftentimes men don't report because maybe she has a good job, maybe she has a good reputation, maybe she's an apostle, maybe she's somebody important in the community, and nobody will believe them. I mean, I've talked to survivors who've had abusers who had high positions in government and were like friends with the sheriff and friends with the governor. And they're not, so they're hesitant to report because they're concerned they're not going to be believed, okay? So sometimes the man is actually concerned about hurting the partner, and they feel that a man's role is to protect, okay? And then sometimes they're concerned about losing contact with their children. And that's a very real concern. Okay, so having said all of that, I wanted to give you some background information because I know that we talk about women being abused quite a bit, but it's important to me that we understand that men are victims too. And you see me post about it, you see flyers about it, because men are victims too. And it's important that they are able to receive the help and the support that they need. Okay? Everybody understand that? And so now, with no further ado, I'm going to let Felix share his story. So his name is Felix Guzman. He is a debate instructor, and I still want to talk to him about this because I think this is fascinating. At Riker's Debate Project. Who knew? Who knew there was such a thing? I had no idea. He lives in Brooklyn, New York. He has a 6-year-old son. He manages Men Can Be Abused, and I'll, give him time to talk about that as well and all the things that he's involved in. He's absolutely a community, advocate. He's very concerned about homelessness. He's very concerned about domestic violence, and he's actively involved in doing something, channeling his concerns into action, which I think is amazing. And he recently got nominated to a committee. The name I can't remember, but I'll let him tell you that.
Actually got it.
You got it? Yay!
Yeah, I got it.
So tell us what it is. What is the committee?
So the community committee or the commission is actually, so I got chosen by the city, I got recommended, I got chosen by the speaker of the city council here in New York to be on this pilot program commitment that's about 7 years for the Commission for Community Reinvestment and the Closure of Rikers Island. So basically, I would be on a commission consisting of representatives from the mayor's office, public advocate's office, and representatives from the Department of Social Services, Department of Probation, Department of Homeless Services,
Okay.
and the Company Hospitals Corporation, all this other stuff to try to earmark like a couple $100 million that will be saved from the closure of Rikers to bring it into community impacted by mass incarceration. So 5 to 10 would be chosen, that's my understanding, and then from there on, I would be on a collective that would decide what to bring to communities to continue further incarcerating and resolving the traumas that keep people in homelessness and recidivism and substance abuse and just poverty in general.
Okay. And so you all heard him mention homelessness. You all heard him mention homelessness, and you might say, well, what's that got to do with? It has a whole lot to do with it. There is absolutely a correlation between homelessness and domestic violence, even. I mean, they are absolutely connected. And there are studies that have been done and that are being done to study the relationship between them. So many men and women find themselves homeless as a result of domestic violence. As a result of, they have to leave their home. They can't be there, or they were financially dependent on the abuser, and you can't leave and still access their money, right? So that's usually not how that works. So all of these things, domestic violence impacts us, a society, in so many different ways, just beyond what's actually being done to the victim in real time. So, Felix, give us a little bit of background about your childhood, and talk slow, so they can hear you.
All right. So real quick, I was born with birth defect called hemifacial microsomia, which is basically an asymmetry across the hemispheres in the face, along with other impacts on like the ear cavity, sinuses, chest, and other stuff. So it's basically like I won the lottery of like birth defects, not as pronounced as some might have, but basically that kind of situation kind of provided the foundation for what's later happening, which is basically due to the isolation, low self-esteem, and the internalized like lack of self-love. I ended up actually just going through a lot of trauma growing up. So looking different, that put me at risk of being a target of violence and bullies, and also later on I'll find out like moralist partners and mates.
Okay, so hold on one second. So you were born with some kind of, because I'm having a hard time hearing you. So you were born with a birth defect.
Called hemi, like Hemi, facial.
Hemifacial.
Micro, M-I-C-R-O.
Okay.
S-O-M-I-A, microsomia. So basically it's an asymmetry. So kind of like, without sounding silly, basically like, I guess, I don't know, one side is different than the other. It's not
okay.
Perfect,
so you were born with a birth defect, and when this is over, you can go back in and actually say what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like in the comments or something. Okay, so you were born with a birth defect. They caused you to look differently, and because of that, you were subjected to bullying and being ostracized and those kinds of things.
The lack of social conditioning in relationships
Okay.
Romantic relationships as a child and as an adult. I didn't have that, so I didn't realize that some people, or I didn't realize what a healthy relationship was because I didn't have like the proper foundation and didn't know because I was basically on the outside looking in.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Did you all hear him? Can you still hear him? I'm going to work y'all thumbs today. Can y'all still hear him? I need to know if you can hear him. Because what he's saying is important. And so he basically grew up without any idea of what a healthy or positive relationship looked like, primarily because he was born with a birth defect that caused him to look differently. He appeared differently than others. And so he never had a clear sense of his own social status, who he was in relationship to other people, and what a positive relationship is. All right. Kelly, if you're there, if you can hear what we're saying, please hit the thumbs up. Because we don't need for him to get deep into his story if you cannot hear. We need to make sure that you can hear him. Okay? Hello, I'm waiting for a thumbs up or a heart from somebody. Thank you. I'm telling Jesus on the rest of y'all. Okay. All right. So we got the childhood part, and we understand that.
Let me jump to a really important part.
Okay.
When I was 14, I got my mother at gunpoint. So from 14 till 19, which was like, high school years, I didn't have any kind of real identity because I was traumatized.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tried to find a job, like, 18, 19, no one would hire me because I looked different. As a result of that, I flocked to whatever job would hire me, which eventually ended up seeing me work in the music industry and the club industry as a promoter. And flyer got quote unquote promoter. Then I transitioned to drug use, and that's why.
Wait. You said you This is the way you said that. You did all these other little jobs, and then you transitioned to drug dealer, right? Is that what you just said?
I could not find a job.
Because you could not find a job.
That it is right now.
Okay.
If you will, that it is right now. So,
okay.
Given the context of things,
mm-hmm.
I worked at a couple places, and I got treated very poorly. It was a hostile work environment, and just no one would hire me. I just, I went into, the music industry, and that's just a whole nother, like, realm of, not
right.
positive stuff.
Right.
I
Okay.
transitioned, and so when I came out from prison, I was medicated because of the trauma I sustained, while in prison. So I basically, as a coping mechanism or to cope with what I was experiencing there, I was on medication.
Okay.
Medication, I was over-medicated, and lo and behold, later on I found out I was misdiagnosed. As a result of being given a medication that I shouldn't have gotten, it put me at risk for being taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I bridged that gap to DV, because in coming off of the medication with a proper doctor,
mm-hmm.
and my memories came back,
mm-hmm.
I was no longer sleeping or a zombie. I could focus, I could think,
mm-hmm.
and I could start rationalizing what was really an abusive relationship. But by that time, my child was already born, and
mm-hmm.
that's when the thing started really happening, is that I started seeing that I had been taken advantage of.
Okay.
Because when a person is on disability, you kind of protect them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you're in a relationship with them, you want to make sure that it's a healthy one.
Right.
But if I'm younger than you and you're non-medicated, but you're also not sober, but I am sober,
mm-hmm.
then I would think that the ethical thing to do would be to have a healthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I say that because I'm younger. She worked a retail job, which, kind of allows you to smile and say whatever you want, and then, present, be sincere, but not be.
Right.
So, kind of jumped around a lot, but so at the time that I met my son's mother, I was studying to become a drug counselor, and around that same time, 2012 it was, my building had been turned into a shelter, meaning that the landlord, when he would empty out the apartments, either not renting, or not even leases, or asking the tenants, making it unsafe, or not making repairs, or buying people out. So if the apartment got empty, he would do repairs, put a program in there. He'd have a contract to provide emergency housing for a family or a home family or adult. You get like $4,000 to $6,000 per situation, and the apartment that was before $6,000, he's getting $4,000 to $6,000 now. Because he was getting $600 to $1,000, now he's getting $4,000 to $6,000. There's no security. My life went to bad. I was dealing with broken mailboxes, pimps and sex workers, drug dealers, people doing everything, breaking and entering, all types of stuff. And in that process of that happening, when I found out that my son's mother got pregnant, I got off of SSI, I went to work full time. So in the process of me doing that, she was working part time, purposing the threshold of poverty to qualify for WIC, food stamps, vouchers, to qualify for night check and all this other stuff. So when I'm off of SSI, working full time, getting private insurance, and for myself and my son, and also having life insurance, she's purposely working on threshold of part-time work, so she doesn't have to pay out of pocket for the insurance, so she can get Medicaid. And whoever has the Medicaid is really in charge. Whoever the child is under the Medicaid isn't like that. The child can be on that insurance for the rest of his life, unless that other parent gets private insurance. So, in the process of trying to work an honest job, and the building being a shelter, and her purposely working under a certain amount of money, as a formerly incarcerated person, I allowed her to have control over not control, but I gave her I guess I did give her control of the apartment credentialing account, to apply for the lottery apartment. So while I'm working full time, working on getting my credit score up, getting hell at work, getting hell in the building, getting help from her, she's hitting me. She's calling out of character. She's starting problems in my household. She's hitting me while I'm sleeping. And then she's not talking to me when she comes in from work. She's working late hours, and she takes off from work, doesn't do anything with the baby. I'm basically falling apart, and she's okay. Want to know why she's okay? Because whether I'm in the picture or not, the child is under her insurance. She has the account in her name. She's working on a credit score by giving me authorized cards in her name, while buying me things to make it look like she loves me. While also, creating conflict, but at the same time, it's like she's covering all bases. And lo and behold, I find out that when I'm busting my butt trying to, after I lost one job, find another job, she literally set up 2 housing connect accounts behind my back, meaning lotteries. So while I'm working an honest job, having been formerly incarcerated, it appears that she had no desire to ever have had me in the child's life. So by doing two accounts and not telling me about the other account, she basically was on her, she didn't want me to get life. So the whole time that I was in a relationship with her, it was predicated on I feel that it was predicated on having a baby to live off the system. Because while she was using me financially, she was also abusing me in front of, abusing me and then causing me to look crazy or violent or other things in public around her friends and family and stuff. So it shows that she's a victim, but behind closed doors, she's actually antagonizing me. So I'm always in PTSD mode.
Right.
So when we're in public and she says something, no one knows that if I'm acting a little up, it's because she's been provoking me for the longest. And no one knows that when I'm trying to work an honest job, she's hitting me while I'm sleeping and sabotaging everything that I'm trying to do. And then as a formerly incarcerated person and someone with a mental health background, as a result of the traumas, that if I have any conflict with police and there's a threat environment, that they would, I would probably lose my life.
Right.
So, to take it back a little bit, I am on disability coming home from prison. Now, what kind of a person would choose to be with someone on disability? That kind of person would be either broken or wanting to take advantage of that person. I say those 2 options because she did nothing to help me find a job. She did nothing to help me save money. She did nothing to work on going towards the future. But because I had recently come off a cancer scare and had surgery on my eye, before meeting her, I was vulnerable and questioning life and being worthless and all that other stuff. So in my vulnerability, I fell for the first person that showed interest in me, and lo and behold, I fell into a situation where it was basically an emotionally drifting family that's living off of that child while taking advantage of the fact that I don't have the financial resources to get a private lawyer in court. And because I have so many blemishes that I would look, for lack of a better term, crazy. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
imagine doing everything you can in your power to live an honest life, having a relationship with someone, and then they bring you to a point where they're trying to get you higher drunk. You know, when they see that the relationship is going nowhere, they're trying to like, you know, step out. Like as far as
Mm-hmm.
step out, I mean like get my life in order, and I see that she's ruining the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And her Hail Mary is sort of like a solution to me starting to actually realize what's happening because I'm coming off the medication as she starts inviting me to the hotel. So basically trying to seduce me to keep me in the relationship while she's already got 2 accounts behind my back.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like who knows what would have happened if I would have kept going her to the hotel. You know, like who knows what. But
Right.
she's always trying to get me to engage in unprotected sex and or like be involved around like people that are partying or whatever the case may be to actually try to see if I would get high or drunk. Now at that point in time, you know, you have to understand that when I came home from prison, I was on my whole like let me catch up, let me be productive in society, let me do the right thing. And when I met her, she lost her job within like 6 months, and she was even trying to find a job. So now if you're a man that's on disability and you know, you lose your job, what are you supposed to do to be in a healthy relationship? It would be the best interest of the couple to, you know, try and actually like make sure that you're okay so he doesn't have to like do anything like to pick up the slack because he's already on losing income. So, you know, my ambition at that time was limited by the medications I was on. Hers was limited by her desire not to work. You know? So I'm jumping around a lot. I apologize because I kind of like thought I was going to be questioned a bit.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. So what I want to do right now is I want you to take a deep breath. I want to recap because we have people that have come on since you first started. So let me just give them a summary so that they have a backdrop. And so we are speaking with Felix Guzman, who is a domestic violence survivor. And I think it's important to hear his story because men are victims too. Men are victims too. And they are less likely to report than women. And we hardly ever report. And so the vast number of things that we know about is just a drop in the bucket. And we know that because of most of the time, it's not reported. And when it is reported, it's not reported every single time. It has to reach this threshold of craziness most times before a woman will even report it. And so men are even less likely to report for all the reasons that I shared earlier. Now, so Felix shared with us that, and he's going to come back on and type it in because I can't do that while we're live. He was born with a birth defect that caused his appearance to be different from others. And so because of that, he was subjected to bullying, was not able to form close relationships, got a lot of negative feedback from people throughout his childhood. And then he was robbed at gunpoint as a teenager. I mean, any one of those things is pretty traumatic without having them piled one on top of the other, okay? And so one thing that we know about trauma is it gets worse and it gets complicated the more negativity we are exposed to without first being able to heal from the first horrible thing that happened to us, okay? And so now you've got this young man who has had a traumatic childhood, who's subjected to bullying and all of that, who because of his appearance is not able to maintain employment, who is being mistreated even on the jobs that he's hired for. And because he's not able to support himself, he begins to deal drugs, which is not all that unusual in society. Okay, so for everybody that's trying to be appalled, just stop it. People do it. Some people do it just because they're not trying to work. Some people do it because nobody will hire them for whatever reason. They're being discriminated against. Okay, and so that's a completely different life path that you're walking down now. When you get into that, in terms of the kinds of people that you interact with, the kinds of people that you're forced to interact with, if you're going to even make a living doing that, right? The dangers that are inherent in that type of lifestyle. So at some point he went to prison, and when he was in prison, and I can tell you this as a clinician, there's a couple of things that you can just about count on going to happen in prison. You're not going to get proper medical care. You're not going to get proper medical care. You're going to catch hell while you're in there, okay? They're going to medicate you, and they will tend to over-medicate you in an attempt to keep you quiet and docile, That happens outside of prison. So imagine inside prison where you have people in close quarters who may have violent tendencies. So they'll over-medicate you to keep you quiet. I've worked in psych for 30 years. I'm telling you what I know. You have a patient that's off the chain, out of control, or whatever, is always in a conflict. You give them some medicine. Make them go to sleep. Calm them down. Numb their emotions, or whatever. And so I have no problem believing him when he says that that's what happened to him when he was in there. Plus, we know prison is not a pleasant environment, right? And so I'm sure that he dealt with things in there that were damaging emotionally. Now, you all have heard me say before, in terms of relationship, and this is something that the Lord had to teach me in my own life. And I don't have a problem with sharing what I've learned, because I wish somebody had been around to tell me what I'm telling you, to be honest with you. I wish somebody had been around that could tell me, listen, don't do that. That's not going to turn out well, okay? So when you come out of a relationship, if it ends because somebody's dissatisfied. One or both parties are dissatisfied. At the very least, even if you were satisfied, if your partner's not satisfied and they leave the relationship, now you have to deal with the hurt concerning that. If you left because you were dissatisfied, you have to leave with the hurt concerning that. But what happens moving into the next relationship is there's a tendency for humans in general to get fixated on what they did not get in that last relationship. Whatever they didn't get. If you're a child and your parents neglected you. If you're a teenager and your boyfriend cheated on you. Your girlfriend cheated on you, whatever. If you were married and the wheels came off that bus. Whatever happened, there's a tendency to seek out the one thing that we felt like if we had had that, everything would have been okay. So we're drawn to that one thing. We're drawn to what appears to be that one thing. Now, here's the thing. You never had it, so you really don't even know what you're looking for. You never had it, so you're not going to know it when you see it. You don't know what it actually looks like. You know what you think it looks like, right? Okay. And a lot of that is based on our hopes and our wishes, okay? And a lot of that is based on fairy tale. But my point is this. We get fixated on the one thing that we feel starved for. And we gravitate to that. The person that presents that thing doesn't have to do a whole lot else. All they have to do is produce in overdrive the one thing, okay? Now, from an abuse standpoint, a bullying standpoint, initially all you would really need is somebody who didn't raise their voice. Someone who seemed to care. Someone who seemed like that they were truly, in this life's race with you. That they were walking alongside you. They could be a serial killer. You're not paying attention to that. You're paying attention to the fact that now you're getting attention and it's not loud, it's not boisterous. They're not threatening you yet. Okay? And so this is how we get sucked in when we are damaged. We are looking for relief. And we're not looking in a balanced way. And we're broken. And so who is drawn to brokenness? People who want to exploit it. 99% of the time. A healthy person does not find your brokenness attractive. I'm going to say that again. A healthy person, a person that is healthy emotionally, is not drawn to you romantically because of your brokenness. That's a problem. And what happens is they need for you to stay broken so that they can continue to feel important. And when you start trying to grow up and you start trying to get better and you start trying to, stand on your own 2 feet, then a whole nother person shows up. Okay? And then that's when the abuse starts. And that's when the manipulation starts. And that's when, Felix shared that she was working and then she got fired and then she wasn't even trying to work. And at one point she was just working part-time. And then trying to, get him to have unprotected sex. And let me tell you something, ladies. That's abusive. If a man says to you he doesn't want any children, or if he doesn't agree to have a baby with you, for you to have sex unprotected, okay? That's abusive. That's entrapment. That's manipulation. And I have no idea how you expect him to feel about that after the fact. You think he gonna just get over the fact that he got played? He gonna just get over the fact that he trusted you and you got yourself pregnant on purpose?
Can you hear me, Cheryl?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
see, there's one thing that I want to say, and really like hammer home the point. Like, I was up in diminished capacity due to the medication, so I was exploited, taken advantage of, and you know, like, and I consider that I didn't get consent in that regard because I wasn't aware of what was happening.
Okay.
Now, again, like coercion and sex as a result of coercion. This is like, let's just call it what it is, sexual assault.
Well,
Now,
that's what it is.
What happens to me, to a woman, he'd be in prison. Now, that's like me taking advantage of a woman who's high or drunk, paralyzed, developmentally disabled, or whatever the case may be. Now, I know that I would not want to be with someone who is at a deficit where, like, I would have to question ethically, is this right kind of relationship for me? So now, for me to be younger and also with all my blemishes, being incarcerated, having a mental health background, like that, like right there is enough red flags to be like, he's not healthy. Why would I want to be with him? And the reason that I feel that she was with me was so she could have a baby by the crazy dude live off the system, and then he would never be able to have any access to a kid because he had all these blemishes, and my family has money, and welfare incentivizes the single parent household, and we know all the scams and schemes because we've been doing this in the family forever. So, like, I never get consent to be in an abusive relationship, including sexual, physical, financial, emotional, environmental, and everything on that abuse bill. I did not consent to any of that.
Well, and you make an interesting point. And here's the other thing that we really have to look at. If a person is not in a position to give consent knowingly, whether it be because they are under the influence of something, whether it is because they have a mental health issue, no matter what the reason is, if they're not in a position to give you consent, that's abuse. That is abuse.
Coercion is the legal term for it, like under coercion, like the sex occurred. Like that's why whenever you hear stories about police SBU, like SBU actually asking rape survivors was the porn involved, was the alcohol, the drugs involved, was there any weapon, do you have any illnesses, but like when it comes to a man's supposed to always want sex. A man's supposed to not want love. A man's supposed to just be like, hey, man, whoever you may be, whether 18, not going forward, like come with me. That is not the case. Like I didn't go through all the trauma that I went through to actually purposely seek out to be in an abusive relationship, and then also have sex, and then also after having one child, knowing that you're not on birth control thereafter, trying to force me into having a protected sex again going forward. And then you see that I'm trying to like hold on to my senses because I'm coming off of stuff. You're trying to present like, oh, you're crazy, gaslighting, crazy behavior. And then like, okay, so like we're gonna get a home, and I found out that there's 2 accounts behind my back. And then I find out that the whole time that I'm thinking that she's going to work, she's taking off to work. And then like there's 2 sets of paperwork saying that he lives here, my son and her live with me, my son and her live somewhere else. And then it's like, okay, who's the babysitter? At the end of the day, like it's a tax grab. So she's quote unquote paying her mom money for the rent and paying her mom money for babysitting, and then she's living in different places on different paperwork. And by doing that, it puts her in the position to get the earned income tax credit, purposely working on threshold of poverty to max, while I'm busting my butt, coming off of SSI, trying to work an honest life. Like it's financial abuse from the jump. I would never want to be with. I wouldn't want to be with a disabled woman and take advantage of her in that way because I know it's not right. Now, I would rather have honest money and an honest career path than to just basically sabotage someone else. Have a baby, let them love the baby, and then systematically try to set them up for domestic violence. Because that's the narrative. Men can't be abused, and I know the laws and I can take an application. And as a formerly incarcerated person, was handcuffed immediately.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So literally, like.
Yeah, you're absolutely at a disadvantage. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, this whole situation was predicated on the fact that I was disadvantaged from the jump. it doesn't also help that her best friend is married to a police officer who she's cheating on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's so sick that they're doing this but able to talk so freely around me, meaning basically, like, we don't get away with anything that we do. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, people conduct themselves that way when they have 100% confidence in what they're doing, that they're going to get away with it. So they're not concerned about saying whatever they need to say to the victim, because their expectation is they are so good at what they do in terms of the gaslighting, in terms of how they present to the community, that nobody will even question. So this is what I want people to understand. If someone comes to you and says they're being mistreated, and you have this violent, negative reaction to it, oh, that can't be true, are you sure? My question to you is this: why do you need for that to be a lie? What dog do you have in the fight? What is it going to cost you to accept it? You know what I'm saying? What is it going to cost you to accept that this person that you hold in high esteem may be mistreating someone? Okay? Why can't you even consider that? Why can't you consider it? You know what I'm saying? Because this is why it has such a foothold. This is why. There are people that we refuse to believe that they're doing this. We just refuse to believe it. We just won't accept it. We won't even consider it. Because if we do, it calls into question our own discernment. It calls into question our own ability to know who we are interacting with and who we are forming relationships with. So, let me recap. If someone doesn't want a baby, you're dead wrong. Dead wrong, dead wrong, dead wrong. Okay, you're using a baby, another human, okay, another life, to further your own goals. And this is the same tactic that men use with women. Okay, there used to be this saying, keep her barefoot and pregnant. The idea being that the more babies she has, the less likely she is to leave. Where is she going? How is she going to feed all these children? How is she going to provide for all of these children? That's one of the oldest tricks in the world. And so what I want you all to understand is that women do it to men as well. They do it to keep them in relationships. They do it to get in their bank account. They do it to get their retirement. Okay? And it's abusive when they do it. If someone doesn't say they want to make a baby with you, and they're in a position to make a baby with you, you're abusive. That's what you are. If you do it under any other conditions.
For me, the thing is, like, she would tell me, at least I'm not taking care of your money. Or, she would make it known that, like when I couldn't afford to buy certain things, she would be like, throw it in my face or whatever the case may be. So, when I'm working full time, she's looking at the child support. She's looking at the, if I get SSDI, then she gets a check off she gets a check for the baby if I get a severe disability, PI. So, the whole time that I'm with her, it was just a strict setup. Now, you got 3 adults in that household, 3 adults, her brother, and her mom, and you have a child. Now, every member of that household appears to be getting a government entitlement. So, it's insane that off of a disabled guy, everyone's living off of his child, and then you want to systematically set that man up with DV, and also claim he's a bad father, all this and that. But you basically sexually assaulted the guy over and over again throughout the course of the relationship, so you could have that child, and then you wanna present that you're a good mom, but how is parental alienation a good thing? How is denying access a good thing? How is it taking advantage of a disabled person a good thing? How is that possible when at the end of the day, takes 2 people, but it would actually take 2 sober minds to actually be a healthy household. And I was sober, but I was also over medicated, and there's no way about that.
And all of that impacts decision making. All of that impacts what we perceive our options to be. And I think that what you've shared about safety and security and how that was lacking for you really throughout your life. And so she exploited all of that. She exploited all of that. And how does an abuser do that? They appear to be providing the thing that you're starved for. Usually it's not hard for them to figure out. They don't even have to be that smart, because there's a tendency for a victim who is not healed to vomit out every terrible thing that ever happened in hopes of clarity and honesty, you know, and not keeping anything hidden. Don't do that. Because if you're dealing with someone who's unscrupulous, you've just told them exactly how to ensnare you. Now they know what to do. Here's the other thing. Remember I said this. If you are starved for anything, the only thing they have to produce is the thing that you're starved for. If you think that's not accurate, I want you to think back. Think back. What were they required to provide other than the thing that you felt like you were starved for? Were they required to provide anything else? Huh?
I've got some friends that are watching the video, and they were made aware of certain situations, instances, and things. And again, like when you have a child, it's sort of too late to actually too late to realize things. And then like when you, as a man trying to get resources for domestic violence, it's laughable when you go to agencies or people want to just make you tell your stories, make you cry in front of them, and then it's just like, I hope everything works out. Well, here's a resource list of overstretched resources for anyone, especially for men, even more so. And like it's crazy. Like basically, like you're telling me that you're a criminal, you're an addict, alcoholic, a mentally ill forever, and people would be like, she's gonna win in court, so why even bother fighting? The point is, like the system is inherently biased towards believing that that a mom is the best parent, but at the end of the day, like given the context of everything I went through, and basically the government providing resources, income and all that stuff, how is it possible that if I can't provide those same kind of resources, or I wouldn't be able to get through those same resources, that I wouldn't be the better parent?
Right.
There's an incentive to actually incentivize like welfare being the quote unquote second parent of the household, because that just creates the infinite amount of resources to get you exploited and counting as earned income, but for a certain thing. But then it's just like who would want to work if like the government is going to give you free, give you money to basically hang out if you want to all day. Do you work? Do you intend to volunteer? Do you go to school?
Right.
You don't have to anymore, and it's crazy that I've managed to transform my life despite all those traumas and be doing things active in the community. And I'm, like, how is it possible that I'm able to be where I am and understand at my age that looking at someone else and not wanting what they have, and also not wanting to deal with everyone and anyone, and then also doing the right thing, considering that as a formerly incarcerated person, like the opportunity for showing redemption and also pathways to proper employment are very little.
Right.
So it's like, at the end of the day, like, what I experienced, no one should have to experience, and the fact that laws aren't in line with the UK, where, forces control is illegal, in a ITV TV relationship, physical abuse, emotional, psychological abuse, and gaslighting, and financial abuse are illegal in the UK. How is it possible that the US, where this is rampant, domestic violence, fraud, and all the abuse that goes along with it, is not criminalized?
Right.
It's in my case, I'm a good man. Now, if she's hitting me and I hit back, I'm wrong. Or if she's yelling at me and I yell back at her, I'm wrong. But it's like, at the breaking point, what am I supposed to do? I walked away, worrying myself, never see my kid again, because she wouldn't bring the child to jail or person to see me.
Right. So, I mean, and at the end of the day, being formerly incarcerated, you're behind the 8 ball every day, all day long anyway.
Exactly.
And no matter what is said, there's going to be a tendency to ascribe, truthfulness to someone who may be lying through their teeth because they've got you at that disadvantage. So there's a couple of things. It's important, the decisions that we make when we are broken. It's important. And every last one of us has made decisions that in retrospect were completely asinine. Okay, they just were. We thought it was the best thing to do at the time, and when you look back on it, not so much. Okay?
I tend to force my way into situations, but in a negative way. Right. And so it's important. It's important to recognize that. Why am I saying that? Because
if you are in a situation right now in which you are being abused, you don't need to go to prison. That's just going to complicate your life for the rest of your life is what it's going to do. Okay?
Yeah.
You don't need to empower the abuser by breaking the law unless you decide I'm going to die right now if I don't do something. Okay? At which point, that should be easy enough to establish, even after the fact. Okay? So you want to think in terms of not making decisions, especially if you're still in that situation, not making decisions that empowers them. Okay? Not flipping out in public, not blowing your stack, because now you do look a little crazy. Okay? So now all people know is, well, they're talking very calmly and you're yelling. They're saying please and thank you, and you just cursed them out. You know what I'm saying? And so you look like you are the problem.
The calculated sociopathy was like off the charts.
Oh, okay.
Like, from the stealing of a blank prescription from a doctor's office when I was there with her, to the like trying to like go into a hotel and like smoking weed around me, to the to the calculated nature and knowing the welfare scans, like how much hours to work, what she can do, what she can't do, to making sure that she was on, didn't let me know about the second house in this account. To it's just insane, man. Like, and the fact that her one of her coworkers actually was claiming domestic violence, but the father of the child would come visit them and bring the baby to visit them after she got off of work. Another one of her friends was in an underage relationship, and they fled the country basically, so that the guy wouldn't get in trouble. But I'm sure the guy's paying money for them. So like that's the disgusting nature of some people.
Yes.
And like I don't agree with any of that. Like at the end of the day, I strive to be better and actually heal the community, heal the community as opposed to continue to hurt it. And as a good man, I'll just say that as a good man, I really just I don't see this kind of behavior warranting like addressing and holding accountability in the court of law. And like I refuse to let this happen to myself and the justice system overlook it. Because I will testify wherever the case may be, Congress, Assembly, City Council. I've been doing it already. And there's laws that are looking to be passed in the U.S. about force of control. There's a senator out here in New York, Kevin Barber, that's pushing for it. And, it's happening. Like, parental alienation is being looked at as made illegal in the U.S. It's already illegal in other countries. So, like, like, I don't understand how the U.S. is so far behind. Like,
don't get me started on the politics in the U.S. of A. Just do not. It's a hot mess right now. But there are many organizations, there are many advocates out here that are working really, really hard. And, we're committed to raising awareness. We are committed to holding people accountable. I know for me, especially even within the church, I know they get tired of me. I'm going to give them an opportunity to be tired every chance I get because I refuse to shut up. I'm not going to be quiet about it. I refuse to go sit down in the corner and be quiet. Whether it's a man that's being abused, whether it's a woman that's being abused, whether it's a child that's being abused, it does not matter who the abuser is. They're dead wrong. And that's all there is to it. And for me, from a spiritual perspective, for those of you who on here who are believers, the reason that it's a hot mess is because the church is a hot mess. That's why. This is why. The church is complicit. We're not doing what we're supposed to do. We're not addressing it. We're looking the other way. Okay? There is something wrong when a minister of the gospel can preach an amazing sermon and then right after the benediction on church property gets shot in the chest by their husband, who then goes on a wild, a high-speed chase with the police, comes back to the house of God, and kills himself in front of the pastor and their young children. That should not even be able to happen. That should not be able to happen. There's no excuse for that. And it dishonors the Lord. It dishonors us. And so if we want this mess that we're looking at in society to get better, we got to clean up inside the house. We got to clean up inside the house. That's it. That's all. So what is it that we want you to understand from this discussion? That men are victims too. And so many of you may be on here and maybe your abuser was a man. That does not mean that every single man is an abuser. Many men have been victimized, okay? And so I'm going to read these statistics for those of you who were not on in the very beginning. Let me read this again, okay? I started off by saying that there's a staggering number of men who are subjected to emotional, financial, physical, mental, all of these different kinds of abuse, all right? A staggering number, okay? 3 million men a year, okay? And that's what's reported. So you have fewer men reporting than you have women reporting. And we know that the number of women reporting is just a drop in the bucket. So think about all of these abuse cases that we have. No, we can't count them because they're not telling us about them, okay? So according to the Centers for Disease Control, 1 in 4 men will become a victim in his lifetime. That's approximately 3 million male DV victims each year. 3 million each year, okay? And that's a minute fraction of what's actually happening. And even that is a minute fraction of the women who have reported, which is a minute fraction of what's actually going on. Okay, so this thing is an epidemic, okay? You will have one man abused by an intimate or domestic partner every 37.8 seconds. Okay? So, what happens? You got damaged people getting with other damaged people. That's what happens. Because a healthy person will run the other way. Listen, I can help you. Listen, I'm a therapist. I can be your therapist, but what I cannot be is your wife. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can be your therapist. I can be your friend. I cannot be your intimate partner. There is nothing about your brokenness that I find attractive. No, 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 no. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be okay. But I'm not trying to go there with you. When you are healthy, you recognize brokenness. And if you want to help, you put that where it belongs in a healthy fashion. That's a friendship. That's a professional relationship. That is not holy matrimony. That is not, let's make some babies together. That's what it's not. Okay? When you violate that, something's wrong with you.
Joe?
Yes.
Joe, real quick, I'm actually I was actually studying with an event. I'm going to have to get back. Looking at the video, I'm not going to be able to listen to it all.
Well, whenever. I'll post it. So whenever you can get back to it, it's fine.
Okay, please do so. Thank you for giving the platform and appreciate you for giving a narrative that should be discussed. And thank you for trusting me to be telling the truth and
yes.
hearing me out.
Yes. I appreciate the courage that it takes for you, as a man. We just looked at the statistics to come on and to share to the whole wide world, basically, because anybody that wants to see this can see it, your story. And so I want you to know that I'm proud of your advocacy efforts and the things that you are doing to kind of channel all of this pain and all of this stuff that you went through into something positive and to be a change agent. Oftentimes, victims will just kind of roll up into a fetal position, and even when they get better and start to heal, they don't reach back to help anybody else. They don't want to talk about it. They'll never tell you they've ever experienced it, which makes that whole experience a waste. So thank you for coming on and sharing. If you all have any questions for Felix, you can post them in the comments, and when he has a minute, he can come back. And he can respond if you have any questions for him. So give us a lot of hearts and stuff because he's got to go. But let's do some thumbs up and some hearts or whatever. And thank him for taking the time to share his story, which couldn't have been easy to share. It could not have been easy to share. All right? Okay, Felix, you take care and we'll talk soon. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. All right, so that was our first male survivor that has shared his story, and I appreciate him coming on. It takes a whole lot of courage for any survivor to share, but men absolutely don't share. And I know that there are a lot of men out here that have experienced it. And a lot of times what has happened is because of their own brokenness, they've connected with a woman who's a victim and unhealed. Okay? And sometimes what happens is the woman decides, I'm not getting ready to be the victim this time. I'm robbing this train this time. I'm calling the shots this time. Nobody will ever treat me like X, Y, and Z again. Okay? And so if we wander through life unhealed and broken, one or two things is going to happen. We're going to get hurt some more, or we're going to hurt others. Whether it is deflected and it's not the partner, but it's the children, whether it's not the children, but it's the dog, whether it's not anyone in your house, but you're a horrible boss because of all this stuff that's happened to you, it's going somewhere. It's going somewhere. Okay? And so be mindful that men are victims too. And I think it's important to talk about it because, as I said previously, when we are negatively impacted by any specific demographic, male, female, black, white, Native American, rich, poor, it's really easy to put everyone from that demographic in that same category. And so this is where our biases come from. Have I been mistreated by black people? Sure. Have I been mistreated by white people? Sure. People are people. People are people. You know, the skin that they're wrapped in is just the skin that they're wrapped in as far as I'm concerned. All right? I'm more concerned about who you are, at the core of who you are, and how do you treat others, okay? How do I feel when I interact with you? How do I feel when I don't interact with you? Do I miss you, or I'm praising God because I don't have to interact with you? You understand what I'm saying? And so it's important that we deal with people on an individual basis and not relegate all behaviors to women or all behaviors to men. You know, oftentimes you'll see people say to a survivor, you didn't do anything wrong. Well, I don't know your situation. I don't know if you did anything wrong or not. At some point, you probably did something that didn't help, okay? Because you're human, and reactive and resistant behavior is you attempting to stand up for yourself, okay? It just doesn't help. It just doesn't help, okay? And so we've got to get away from deifying women and demonizing men, or the other way around, okay? And then we can start making some headway and look at these situations on a case-by-case basis. Every abusive relationship has its own unique underpinnings. No two situations are exactly the same because no two people are exactly the same. All right? And we talked about this in our most recent blog article, which if you subscribe to our blog at www.judasroar.com, then you'll get a safety plan template that you can use or you can have to share with someone in your life that may be experiencing domestic violence, okay? So, do you all have any questions or you have any comments that you want to share? And I can come back in. And I see Janet's on here. And I saw Natasha. Dr. Harriet Stevens is on here. Savan is on. And I appreciate you all tuning in. Please share. Armstrong, my brother in Christ from Solomon Islands. So and Natasha, thank you for capturing some of those facts for me. So understand that men oftentimes won't report because sometimes they're really concerned about their partner. They don't want to destroy their job, their reputation, or whatever. They don't want to hurt them. That part of them that says, I'm the man and I'm supposed to be the protector, means even if she's mistreating me, I'm not supposed to damage her. And so we get confused as victims sometimes in terms of holding people accountable and responsible and hurting them. Your reporting them is not hurting them. The behavior that they engaged in, the reportable behavior, is what's damaging to their reputation. Okay? They are concerned about not being believed at all. They are concerned about being blamed for being the aggressor. You know, oftentimes people will look and say, well, she's 5 foot and you're 6'2". How could she be abusive to you? It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. It has nothing to do with size. It has very little to do with size, as a matter of fact. Women know that words hurt. Words hurt. you want to damage somebody, you can do that pretty effectively by just saying something horrible out of your mouth. You don't even have to touch them, and they'll never be the same. And women know that, okay? Men know it as well. But all of that, that's verbal and emotional abuse, no matter who's doing it, okay? So, if you have any questions, pop them in, and I will respond when we are done. I'm looking forward to next week's. We've got a guest that's going to come on next week and share her story. And her story is mind-blowing as well. I mean, I'm telling you, these journeys that people have had to take because of the decisions that they made earlier in their life in terms of who to get involved with, who to remain involved with, it's something else when you hear what they have endured. And it tells you something about the Lord's faithfulness and just the power of the human spirit that he's put down on the inside of us. And I want you to know today that no matter where you are in your journey, no matter what you feel you're doing without, no matter how discouraged you might be when you survey your life, that there is absolutely nothing too hard for God. I want you to know that if someone's mistreating you or they have mistreated you, God did not send them. That is a lie from the pit of hell. He didn't send them. That other critter sent them, and they look good to you on some level. And that's what you gravitated to. And the sooner we can accept that, the sooner we can get healed, okay? And so it's important to, first of all, recognize that this is what happens when you attribute it to God or when you blame God. It's difficult to then go to God for help now, isn't it? Because if God would send that to you on purpose, is that not abusive? Well, that's not his character. That's why I can tell you I know that that wasn't him. Every single time that I've been hurt in my life, let me just be transparent here. Every single time that I've been hurt, every single time that I have found myself in a situation that was abusive, it was a decision that I made. I didn't have to make it. And not only did I not have to make it, I had other options. Okay? I had other options. That's just the truth. Our heart condition determines what we choose at any given point in our life. The condition of our heart, the degree of our brokenness, the degree to which we can trust the Lord with that broken heart. Okay? When we don't, we look for something to soothe it. We look for something to make us feel better. We look for something that will validate our existence. Okay? The problem is someone with an abusive personality is sensitive to that. It's like a shark in blood. And they know that all they have to do is present the thing that you said hurt you the most. If they cannot do that thing, if they can produce the opposite of that, they won't have to do it for long. They won't have to do it for long. Because a broken person will be all in no time at all. All they need is reassurance. Reassurance. Reassurance, okay? So I want to encourage you today. Do not ignore the red flags. Felix made some good points. You know, he talked about his birth defect and how it made him look differently. And he talked about his blemishes. He talked about the fact that he made a decision to get into dealing drugs because he couldn't keep employment because of his birth defect and because people were biased against him. He talked about being bullied. And we know what emotional impact that can have on a young child, right? And so then you meet someone who appears to be accepting of you and all of your flaws, okay? How many times have you seen people say that? Even on social media, he or she accepts me with all of my flaws. What that tells me is you lack self-confidence. And you need them to accept you for you to accept you. That's a setup. That's a setup. They have a whole lot of power. They have a whole lot of power, okay? They have a whole lot of power. When we don't genuinely care for ourselves, we give that other party, we give the people around us a whole lot of power. And if they are not who they say they are, you better fasten your seatbelt. Okay? So, we want you all to be encouraged. We want you to be encouraged. Know that the Lord loves you. He has an amazing plan for your life. He promised. He promised. The only one that can derail that is us. The only one. Okay? So every day I ask God to help me to stay out of my own way. There you go. I'm not worried about anybody else stopping me. I got to stay out my own way. Okay? I need to be honest with myself always. I need to be able to accept responsibility for my decisions. And that doesn't mean that you beat yourself into the ground for it, because that's not humility. That's pride. That's pride. That's pride. You're not that wicked and that evil and that jacked up that you need to just beat yourself over the head nonstop. That's not humility. That's pride. Okay? So, when you've done something that you shouldn't have done, when you've made a decision that was unhealthy or unwise, acknowledge that, at least internally. Acknowledge that and set about addressing that, rectifying that. Get some help. Get some counseling from someone who is skilled in domestic violence, not just anybody. You would not go to a general practitioner for open heart surgery. You would not go to a podiatrist to do laser surgery on your eyes, would you? You need someone who is skilled in the dynamics of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. Okay? That's what you need. Not your pastor necessarily. Are they a therapist? Are they a clinician? Are they skilled in domestic violence? Okay? They might love you and they might mean well, but they're not skilled. And we're talking about your life now. Talk about your life. All right? So, we love you. We will be back on next week. We are looking forward to that interview as well. Please share. Share. When you see our post, share it. The way we can raise awareness is by sharing. That only takes a hot second to click that share button. And you never know who you're helping. You never know who you're helping. Okay? This is Apostle Cheryl Richardson. I love you and know that I'm praying for you, not just on Sunday. I'm praying for you throughout the week, all right? Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Blessings to you.